I've been involved with Agile development since 2000. I mentioned that I had started on an extreme programming project in 2000, and the term Agile development was coined in 2001. So I started with one of these processes, which is now an Agile process, and started working this way, and really grabbed on to what Agile development is, but saw that it had some problems that bothered me. One of the benefits I got out of working with Agile software development is finally starting to reflect on the process I was following. I thought I was pretty darn good at software development before I started developing this way. I started questioning what I thought I knew about software development when I started working with people that were really pushing their game, the people that were really focusing on the process they were following and how effective it was or wasn't. So it's about this time that I started questioning what I thought I know, and went into a cycle of really working hard to learn a lot about process, or learn a lot about how things were going, and figure out better ways to do things. But in 2001, the term Agile came out. A lot of interest got generated around Agile development, and it's been increasing and snowballing over the years. And what I've started to see is people started to grab the best of all these processes and mash them together into one process, and people focusing an awful lot on process, an awful lot on following Scrum by the book, or following extreme programming by the book, or following something by the book. And we're starting to see this big common conglomeration of process that's getting harder to follow and quite a bit less reflective than I remember it being in 2000. And it's starting to feel a lot like the rational unified process to me, which is another process that kind of got hit by a big explosion of lots of practices, and it became big and harder to adopt, things like that. And something is starting to smell to me. I don't know if we're getting more rigorous or if we're getting more rigid in the way that we're doing things, because there's a few common ideas that come back from these people way back in the 70s and 80s, which I'm not hearing or feeling anymore as we start to focus on process. And so that's what I want to talk about. So I want to talk about, I'm going to focus on one common problem, and instead of just focusing on a problem, I want to give you what are my strategies for dealing with it. I am famous in Agile development, or there's an intersection between what's referred to as user experience design and Agile software development. So user experience design are people who design user interface, sort of. I'm a developer, but I also have a commercial art background, and everybody knows that when a developer has a commercial art background, they're the UI guy. So I became the UI person, but it's my application of user experience practice that's kind of led to a lot of these strategies. But one of the things that user experience people do is they try and describe what user experience is like by using people that are representative of their users, and they sometimes refer to those as personas. Has anybody heard of the term persona before? So, good. Okay, so I've got some personas here, but I've kind of flipped it a little bit. So I've made up the stories, but I've used actual people instead of making up the people. So you may, none of you, very few of you look old enough to know who these people are. But so the older ones help out the younger ones, and see if you can figure out who these people actually are. So I'm going to use some real people here. I'm going to start with Roger. I think I have to wait a minute. Roger's a seasoned business person, and he's got some product that he needs to build. All these people have theme songs as well. Agile development seems very simple to Roger because he just writes down everything that he needs, breaks it up into small pieces and goes into this nice development cycle of building it one piece at a time. It's just like adding bricks into a wall. And over time I see the wall come up and I get more and more. This is pretty straightforward. I'll like this a lot. And this is Melanie. She's on the development team. So Melanie sits down with Roger and says, Roger, you're the expert. Tell me what you want, and we're going to write them down on these index cards, and we're going to prioritize these. So Melanie and Roger sit down together, and they start writing user stories, one at a time, because it's Roger. They use bricks instead of cards. And they write more and more, and they come up with a large number of user stories. And they prioritize these. And then Roger says, this is what I have to have in the system in order to meet my stakeholders' concerns. I need all of this stuff. And Melanie says, no worries. We've been developing software for a long time in an agile way, and we know what our velocity is, and we've estimated these, and we're very comfortable we can deliver all of these stories on time in the time requirement that you've got. Roger's really liking agile development. One of the things that Roger learns from Scrum is the idea of a burn-down chart. A burn-down chart is a nice thing that lets Roger monitor the progress of the team as it continues to build this software. It's a simple thing. We simply stack up, or on the left axis of the burn-down chart, we have the stories that we need to develop, and then every single development cycle, we simply count how many we finished. And we'll start to see a curve going or burning down. It's this burn down that this allows us to see how things are going and allows us to detect a little bit sooner when things are going wrong. So the first iteration, things seem to go fine, and there are less stories now to build than there used to be, and things look pretty good. And on the second iteration, things still look good. The things that Melanie was right. They're delivering software at the rate that she expected. And he can plot a trend line at this point and say, you know what, it really does look like we're going to finish on time. I'm really liking this agile stuff. But it's about iteration 3 or sprint 3 or cycle 3 that the team is actually even getting faster, but Roger takes a close look at what the software is looking like and says, I've got some problems here. We can't ship this software. And now that I look at it, there's a couple things missing. And Melanie says, you know, the great thing about Agile is we can change our mind at any time. All we have to do is add those stories into the backlog. And then another iteration goes by, and the team develops at the velocity that Melanie said they would. And now that Roger sees more of the software, he realizes there's some holes and there's some things that aren't quite there. And Melanie says, no problem. Let's just add those into the backlog. And Roger starts to notice something that as he goes by iteration, and he replots that trend line, that we're not going to finish on time anymore. And he goes to Melanie and says, look, we're having trouble here. And she says, well, no problem. We just need to drop a few of these stories. And Roger says, you've got to be kidding. And Melanie says, no, that's the great thing about agile development. You can change your mind at any time. Isn't it great? And